Welcome back, and thank you for joining the Serving My Master podcast. So we discussed a little bit the idea of clarity and how that clarity could take us through our day, through our life, and is of course the essential ingredient to what we discussed, the idea of happiness, where we can avoid all doubts and see with clarity exactly what we are doing in this world, why we are doing it, and have the knowledge of knowing I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. One of the most incredible tools one has to have in order to get there is trying to understand a little bit better what it is that we are looking for on a constant basis throughout our day and of course in the long term. As we discussed in the past, for all these big ideas that we have in this world, Hashem always gives us first a little bit of a glimpse, like we discussed the idea of Shabbos, having a glimpse of what's coming in the world to come, and so forth. Other ideas where we discussed where Hashem has always given us a little bit of a glimpse first of what could be, of the potential what could be, in order for us to be enticed and incentivized, and in order for us to believe and know that it is possible to reach those higher goals. And in this specific topic, the glimpse that he has given us is quite obvious. We see throughout history and throughout the world, people are willing to give up certain comforts, certain ideas that they would express that they want in order to receive something in the long term. In other words, people are willing to go to work 9 to 5, to give up sitting on the couch or other so-called comforts in order for in the long term to have some other idea that they feel is more important. And of course, this idea is the essential part and tool of a person reaching clarity. A person has to be able to differentiate from things that I want and things that I need. A person has to be able to differentiate from things that I want and things that are actually good for me. A person might want to eat donuts the entire day. A person might want to eat sugary drinks the entire day. But essentially, that will not be good in the short or long term. In other words, we have the capacity to differentiate between things that I feel and think that I want and things that are actually good for me and that are actually right. And when we understand and see that there are things that we want and things that we need, or things that are good for us and things that we're supposed to do, as servants of the master of the world, what happens is it becomes a lot clearer and simpler for us to make these decisions. When a person is able to say, wait a second, when I'm thinking this idea, when I have this doubt, is it because I want it? Is it because I want it for whatever biased or underlying reason? Or is it something that is essentially something that I need and something that is good for me for now and for the long term? And what happens is that when we're able to put on these glasses, what happens is that we have the clarity, that we have the clear state of mind, of understanding of what we're doing, why we want to do it. And then, of course, what happens in the outcome is that we can look back and say, I did this for a good and valid reason. And like we mentioned in the previous episode, that can become an idea of a happy, compliant, and maybe not always successful servant. As you might have noticed, I am calling him a happy servant, while not always is he successful. Because you see, a servant that is trying to do the thing that he needs to do, not that he wants to do, but that he needs to do. A servant that's trying to do the thing that you're supposed to do. Even if he might fail, or at least in our human version of what failure means, even if he might not fully succeed in what he thought he might have to do, he will still be happy knowing that he did exactly to the maximum capacity of his ability, exactly what he was supposed to do, as his master intended him. Because you see, the outcome is irrelevant anyway. The point in this world is not that we should be masters of our outcome, that we should be the masters of the plan of what's supposed to happen and what life is supposed to look like. The point here is to understand that we're servants and therefore only the master's will matters. And since our master is the master of the world, the outcome of the story is anyway something that he will write. The only thing that matters to us is to do what he wants us to do in this world. And this, of course, brings us to the idea that we have about how one must go about what is called in Chovos HaLevavos the idea of ishtadlus, the idea of working towards a certain goal. And as one goes through the reasoning behind this, it becomes crystal clear that the outcome never matters. The outcome is only something that is relevant to a master. And since we're not in this world to be masters, the outcome is never relevant. The only thing that's relevant is the path, which means not only do we have to do what's right, but we have to do what's good. You see, something that's right is sometimes something that feels right. But something that's essentially good might not always feel right. And again, going back to the idea that sometimes in every aspect of life, we will always find a glimpse of what the potential is. And in this, the same thing, a parent of a child might sometimes have to put the child in a hospital or go through a procedure. It might not feel right. It might feel wrong, but it is essentially good. You see, the difference between good and right is something that's in the immediate. Right now it feels right or it feels wrong. Something that's good is essentially good no matter what it feels like. Not only do we have to put away what we want, not only do we have to put away what feels right, but we always have to think what's in essence good, which is why the easy differentiation here is between what I want and what I need. Because what I need as a servant is to fulfill the will of the master of the world, which is always relevant. There is never a time in this world that sentence is not relevant. So there is always a need for me to do something specific, to think a specific thought, to process a specific idea, and to follow through on it. And therefore, when one connects these dots to understand that there is something that I want as a human, there is something that I want because I feel it's right, there is something that I want for whatever other reason, and then there is something that I need to do, that I need to try to process, not that I need to accomplish. Accomplishment is something that's only relevant to the master of the world. Success in this world is only one thing. The only thing that reaches ultimate success in this world is the end of life. The only time a human being reaches the highest level of success is the end. Because that's the only thing that we have that's complete. Everything else in this world is only trying to fulfill the will of the master of the world. And we can only do as much as he intends us to do. So let's try to put these things together in order to have another ingredient and another tool that we can use on a daily basis. We went through the idea that happiness we reach when we put away all the doubts, and when we have no doubts and we can come home and go to sleep at night knowing I did what I was supposed to do. In our second episode this season, we discussed clarity and how one must reach clarity. And now in today's episode, discuss the idea, the differentiation between what I want and what I need. And when one can differentiate between the two, that is what can bring one to make decisions based only on what I need to do, based only on what I need to do as a servant. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to continuing this discussion with you. And again, if you feel that this episode and this podcast might help someone you know, please feel free to sharing this podcast with them. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.